Hello my friends, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. I created this painting earlier today and it took me about an hour to create, only to realize that I never hit record. So I'm painting it again for you, only on a smaller scale, and this time I did make sure that I hit the record button. So you can see that I traced my cup only so that I can keep focus of where my center is, so that as I blow out my petals, it gives me a good starting point so my petals don't go crazy on me. And the colors that I'm using are Sunshine Yellow, Sailboat Blue, Twilight Purple, I think, and Meadow, and these are all by Ranger. I'll also be using Snowcap and Pitch Black for the center of the flower once I'm finished. And I will be using Posca pens as well. One is the thickest nib they have, and I forget exactly what the size of it is, but the smaller one that I'll be using is a 0.7. So you can see I'm adding my color all around that circle that I created in the center of the paper. And I'm making sure that it's dry. And I don't care that they're bleeding together, that's okay. Now I'm going to be using a large amount of alcohol, and I'll be creating my favorite petals, the ones that look like they're folded fabric. And the way I do that, you can see, is very, very easy. I just put down a large amount of alcohol, and then my first push with the airbrush is to push it right off the paper, and then I just go back and forth. And you can see that I'm holding the airbrush at a very slight angle, and the PSI on the compressor is set at 40. Now you can see, oh, here I'm showing you. When you start to get those frilly edges, all you have to do is blow them back in. And you'll see me do that. See right there? I just blew them back in. That's all you have to do. Some people like the frilly edges, and I have a tendency to like them as well. But for this particular painting, I didn't want any. So you can see as they start to appear, I just push them right back in and then continue. Now, right now, this is really pretty. It's very soft. The colors are very nice, but I want a little bit deeper tone in my petals. So I'm going to add more ink. And then I actually switched the purple, and as you can see, I don't clean my lids, so it was stuck. But I keep that tool there just for that reason, so I can loosen my caps. I did switch to a different purple, but I can't remember the color. It's just a deeper tone of purple. And I'm adding some more color. The same colors again, except for the twilight purple. I'm making sure that it's completely dry before I start pushing out my petals again. And you can see I'm using a nice amount of alcohol. And when you put the alcohol down on the ink, let it sit for a moment so that it softens that ink again. And that way you'll have more color pushed through the alcohol with the compressor. So I'm just going around the painting using the same technique, making sure that my petals are dry. So even when you think they're dry, give it another whirl just to make sure. Because the last thing you want are those ugly little formations at the ends of your petals. Now, if you want your petals to be darker, you can add more ink, or you could have left it just the way it was. Either way is pretty. I just wanted, again, mine to be a little bit deeper. Now here I wanted a little bit more purple, so I just put another drop down. Didn't even dry it, just poured the alcohol over it and pushed it out. And if there's any areas that you aren't happy with, you can just put some more alcohol down and fine tune it, as I call it. Okay, now that I have my colors, rather my petals blown out and I'm happy with it, I'm putting pitch black in the center. And I want my center to be large, so I did put down a nice amount of pitch black. And I want to make sure that it's completely dry before I start blowing it out across my petals. And the reason I do this is because I do want a little shadow in the center, so that when I start adding the snow cap, it shows up better. So, and it makes it look more concave when it's a little bit deeper in color in the center. Can you guys hear Diesel snoring again? So you can see it just deepens the center a little bit. Just enough so that when you start adding the snow cap, it's a nice foundation for it. It helps the white show up a little bit more. So go around and softening that black until you're satisfied. And then make sure that everything is completely dry. Now you can see that when you create petals like this, it creates these beautiful folds in your fabric, in your painting that looks like fabric. So now I'm taking the largest nib Posca pen that I have, and I'm going to start outlining some petals. Okay, so here I finished outlining my petals using my thickest tip Posca pen. I keep trying to say micron pens, but they're Posca pens, not micron pens. And now to create my background, you can use the Posca pen to fill in the background in black, but that does use a lot of ink, and it's much easier to just use acrylic paint. And the black acrylic paint that I'm using is by Meeden, and it's got a really nice thick consistency. And you can see how easy it is to fill in the background. I do recommend using a smaller brush to get into those little tight corners. And you'll see me do that in just a moment. And it dries really nice. I've been asked often if I work on black paper, but I actually never have. I prefer to work on white photo paper or white paper than black, because I think the colors are much more vibrant. I don't like having to add snow cap to my color and then blow ink over it to make it show up on black paper. I can just create a black background very easily. My colors are more vibrant, and I like this effect much more. Okay, so here I'm showing you how I create the little lines in the flower petals to create detail and dimension. They are just short little skippy lines, dashes, and dots. And what I'm trying to do here, I'm using a smaller nib Posca pen. I think this one is a 0.7. But you can see that I'm following the folds that the ink has provided me with. And I try to keep my lines going with the shape of the petal. So I like to make them a little bit closer and darker towards the center, because it gives the illusion of the flower being concave and the petals standing out more. But you can see here I'm just following some of the folds in the petals. And again, my lines are just skippy little lines, dashes, and dots. And it's very easy to get carried away when you're creating these lines in your petals. But you've got so much going on with the folds of the ink, the black background, and all the different colors that you really don't need to add too many. So try not to get carried away. And you can see I'm following the folds. The ink gives you the lines to follow. It's actually very simple if you just follow the lines. This is very, very relaxing to do. So if you turn on some music, maybe pour yourself a glass of wine, it'll be very easy to get carried away. So try not to. And here you can see, I think that now this is the second to last petal. And I brought you a little bit closer because I want you to see what I'm doing. See how I'm following the lines that the ink provided me with? Okay, this is the last petal here. And to create these little cracks in the petals, I create kind of like a little triangle at the tip of the petal, and then follow it with a couple of little lines and dashes and dots. I hope that I've done a good job of explaining this to you, and that seeing it helps you understand what I mean. You don't need a lot. Now, to create the center of the flower, decide which part of the flower you want to be the top and which is the bottom, and where you want your lights, your light source to be coming from. I want mine, as always, to come from the top left-hand corner. So as I start adding these white dots, I start at that point, and every time I add another layer to my center, I start at the same place where my light is coming from. And of course, because I do have a lot of ink in the center of my flower, the pitch black and all the other inks that were there before that, you can see that the snow cap is absorbing those colors, and it doesn't show up very well, but that's really great because that is a great foundation for your center. It'll give your flower more depth, and make sure that you dry in between your layers. I see that a lot of people are creating their centers by only doing one layer, and to get that depth and dimension from your center, you need to do multiple layers. And it's important that you have one area that is very highlighted with the white dots and another area that has less, because that's what creates that depth. So you can see I'm drawing in between my layers, and as I need to reload the ink on my brush, that's when I start to move down in the center of my flower. But I always start at the top left-hand side. And I'm not even sure how many layers of dots I added on here for this particular flower, but it's really important to add layers and to dry in between. And you can see here that it's very visible that my light source is coming from the top left-hand corner and that the bottom right-hand corner is in shadow. And now I like to add some little dots just outside of the center, just to make it look a little bit more fluffy. And I like that look. Well, we're nearing the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed this and found it helpful, and I hope that you give it a try. Be sure to share it with me if you do. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.